get some more playtime with this game before I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
The squat, distended body of an elderly dwarf woman dangles from a thin, crooked bow that sags at the tug of a noose. The bloated purple flesh of her neck, worn away in patches like moth-eaten linen, bulges over the rope that suspends her, and her lifeless head lolls forward rigidly from one side to the other when the breeze shifts. You perceive a faint glow around her that casts no light on its surroundings, but there is a tepid warmth to it, and you feel somehow that you could reach out and touch it. Not with your hands, but with some aspect of yourself that has no worldly dimensions. Reach out for the woman. You take a deep breath, clearing your mind, focusing on your objective. As you exhale, you feel yourself spreading out toward the hanging woman, perceiving all that lies between you and her with new, unfamiliar awareness. Once you have expanded enough to reach her, there's a sudden jolt to your mind, a ringing, electric surge of images and words and sounds. Involuntarily, you shut your eyes and feel yourself being pulled down to some deeper consciousness in a space occupied only by you and the hanging woman. And when you open them again, she is staring at you with eyes clouded in a milky fog. Her body is still swaying in the wind. You no longer feel from a tree that stands planted in a misty void. The woman gives a slow nod of her head, the rope creaking as she does so, and she smiles at you.
Have you come here for me, dear, or have you gotten lost? It is both, I think. Yes?
Her eyes squint as she peers down at you. How are you able to speak to me?
Is that what we're doing? Perhaps it just seems that way. Perhaps it is the easiest way for your mind to make sense of it. I think it is a very good choice.
Am I imagining this?
No, I think not. A pity that. It would be simpler. A mercy then. To not have to wander anymore, no? Alas, we are here, you and I, wherever here may be.
I need to understand something that happened to me. She nods, a look of pity on her face, as though consoling a child.
The world looks a little different than it used to, is that it? Feels like you're noticing things for the first time that have always been there.
She nods.
You have seen past the shroud. It only takes an instant. Your soul remembers, yes? Remembers how it sees when it leaves the body, like being reminded of a dream you had forgotten. You are a watcher now, and a watcher you will stay.
What's a watcher?
What indeed? Long hours have many animancers spent studying such things. Not I. Not I. I'll tell you what I know, though, since fair is fair. And here we are visiting, you and I, and it reminds me of better times. Souls pass on. Some say through Audra stones, which are the blood veins of the world. They leave the world for a time and are reborn into it, sometimes more than they were before, but usually less and seldom the same. For all souls there is a time where they do not live, yet have not passed on, and those souls roam the world, same as you or I, either living or lost. But no one sees them because they have forgotten how. A watcher sees, though, knows what to look for. And sometimes they know a person just by looking at them, know where they've been in ages past when their bodies were other bodies. See memories even their owner can't recall. A wonder to behold when all goes well. A wonder.
What did you mean when all goes well?
Oh, nothing to be afraid of, I'm sure. It's just much to take in for some. Sometimes there's trouble sleeping or other difficulties.
She smiles at you reassuringly, fanning out a tuft of long whiskers that sprouts from one of her cheeks.
You should see old Mayorwald. He could tell you much more than I. A watcher just like you. Helped many in his day. Took up in an old keep no one would claim. Not far, not far. Kanua, beyond the Black Meadow. He will welcome the company.
I think I survived a beer whack. Do you know why that would be?
Did you now, dear? My, that would be something, wouldn't it? Could be luck, could certainly be. A storm can be a careless thing. Or maybe it got its hands around your soul but couldn't pick it up. A soul can be heavy if it stayed in one piece through its time. Strong souls, we call them in the trade. Cold, I mean. Called them. Those days are all behind me now.
You said souls break apart over time.
Oh, yes. Entropy. Rimagan's work. We know little of why or how. We lose pieces of ourselves when we die and pick up pieces of others when we are born again. But less than what we lost. We tried to stop it with the animantic sciences, but with little success. A very small few resist Rimargan's influence and stay together through some force of defiance, at least for a time. But they all succumb eventually, I think.
She clicks her tongue. I want to know something about you.
Me? I'll bore you to tears, though.
What's an animancer?
A student of the soul. Something so basic, yet so poorly understood. But so many breakthroughs have been made in my lifetime. Had been made. Had been. To hear the locals tell it, we're a gang of soul manglers that preys upon the weak-minded. And the worst of us are. But the best of us? The best? Inspirations. Miracle workers. My parents were soul twins. Miserable before they met, empty inside. It was an animancer who helped one find the other. Turned their lives around. You wouldn't believe the stories. Amnesiacs helped to remember their lives. The suicidal brought back from the brink of oblivion. The elderly afforded extra moments to say their goodbyes. How soon we forget when we're afraid. It's a fascinating science. A fascinating time to be alive in a place like Deerwood that does not control the research, no? I love the Valian Republics for many things, but their recent caution will leave them behind, I fear.
What happened to you? She laughs, her rasping, choked cackle escaping between rows of buttery yellow teeth, causing her body to bob up and down with each spasm. Seeing your blank expression, she catches herself.
Oh, come now. Such a question. As though the answer were plain as a rope tied for strangling. Allow an old dwarf her last bit of cheer. Well, I came where I was needed, didn't I? Offered my services to Lord Radric for a pittance. A humble pittance. I was to examine the Lord's wife, see why the gods have seen fit to poison her womb. Studied her for months, looked high and low for impurities, tested her balance, the permeability of her essence. Do you know what I found?
Tell me.
Nothing at all. A healthy woman, head to toe, blessed with a beautiful soul. Such a sweet woman, too. Meek, but warm-hearted. A few months' time, and the lord of the house demanded answers. For a time, I told him what he wanted to hear. Oh, yes, my lord. She is riddled with imbalances. I must have time to cure her. As the birth drew near, he grew impatient, as lords do. And this is where I've ended up.
Who are you?
And here I thought you'd come to visit me in particular. Caldara de Baranzi, of the Valian Royal Academy of Animantic Sciences. Not the greatest of their number, but I came here all the same because this was where help was needed.
I had other questions.
Of course, dear.
Farewell.
Goodbye, my dear. It was lovely visiting.
Caldara closes her eyes and her head slumps forward over the news, and your surroundings seem to bleed into your vision from some unknown place of waiting. Crucible of the Soul. What's the Crucible of the Soul? Is that an item? Is that an ability? It's an ability, Crucible of the Soul. Okay.
$17 and a half.
The smell of pipe smoke, at once earthy and sweet, wins its way into your nostrils. Your eyes trace the smoke to its origin, where you find the broad man, with straw-colored hair, leaning against a mossy rock wall, his pipe held to his lips with one meaty hand. We get it. He is broad and he is meaty. Stop teasing us. He looks you directly in the eye, but the look is not aggressive. He regards you with a peculiar smirk.
17 and a half. Well, could be 18, depending on how you count the dwarf woman.
I'm sorry?
The dwarf woman. You were trying to figure out whether to count her as a full person. I think you oughta.
What are you talking about?
The people hanging from the tree. 18 of them. Well, last I counted, anyway.
Olaf frowns. Is that what you people do for fun around here?
Name's Adair. Out of the people around here, might as well be 19.
Adair.
Don't think I put you much higher than
I call him what,
22.
Eater?
23 tops. You look like the sort that likes to get involved.
Adair. Adele, like Adele, but Adair. Okay. I think Eater sounds more masculine. What makes you think I was interested in a dwarf woman? He looks at you a moment, his brow arched. His smirk broadens.
I was smoking over here, saw you staring at her. Twice I refilled my pipe. You never so much as blinked. Your mouth was so slack I took you for a Radric at first.
What is it to you? You'll have to forgive my curiosity. Round here we prefer to turn a blind eye to our dead. Do you know what a watcher is?
Careful, friend. Let's not use that word round here. Any number of Radric bootlickers within earshot. Ciphers, animancers, watchers. Same thing in the eyes of folks around here, Radric especially. They come to these parts all the time with their cures, preying on the desperate. better than who they claim to be. Of course, seeing you with that funny look, I'd be halfway inclined to believe you were having some kind of communion with that dwarf. Either case, maybe I'm not 19 after all. No offense.
You think you're gonna be hanged?
The town's had it in for me for a long time now. Only fella who ever stuck up for me, well, he's number 18 up there. My headman on the farm. Used to be my captain during the war.
The war? Saints' War. Only one in my lifetime. Fellow decides he's the living incarnation of Eothas. Overthrows Red Sarahs, marches on Deerwood, so we gave him a Deerwooden hello. What's a Deerwooden hello?
We blew him up.
He smiles at this. But it is a smile of one recounting a joke for effect rather than enjoyment. Who's Eothas? God of rebirth and redemption. Formally, anyhow. Maybe they call him something different where you're from. I got time. Why was your headman hanged? Got involved. Redrick sent men down here the other day. Said that they had it on good authority someone in town was working with Kolsk, plotting Redrick's overthrow. Said if he didn't come forward, right then and there, they'd hang every last one of us. No one was coming forward, so Swithin, that's my headman, he steps up and says it's him. They took him at his word. He sighs and shakes his head, his eyes fixed on the tree. Bound to happen sooner or later, if not for plotting against Redrick, then for protecting me. What does your town have against you? You're too hot to handle?
Pick the wrong god. That's what it comes down to. Used to be a lot of Aethys worshippers in Gilded Vale. That mess of rocks over there owns a temple to him, to give you some idea. Then one day, somebody named Widewind shows up on Deerwood's doorstep. Says he's the living flesh of Aethys. Got an army with him. Suddenly, Aethys isn't so popular in these parts. My brother Woden and me, neither of us believed it. No way was that Aethys. He enlisted, and I did too. But he didn't make it back. After the war, people took to punishing Aethys worshippers, accusing them of treason. Got real ugly, especially after the legacy started. Folks needed someone to blame. I was safe because I fought, but then this rumor starts that my brother, that he was on the wrong side. And I wasn't so safe anymore. Until my headman stepped in and said they'd have to hang him to get to me. Seems that's no longer a concern. Of course, the townies don't do the hanging these days, but when Raedrick's men come, they got no problem doing the pointing.
Ella glances at you and lowers his voice. You can see why I was eager to leave. Who's Kolch? Someone who got tired of all the hangings. He's on the run now. Probably will be till they catch him. If you're next to be hanged, why are you still around? What are you still doing here? He gives a half smile. Drinking, mostly. Point of fact, I'm on my way out. Just haven't figured where I'm going yet. Not a whole lot of places out there that don't think Wadewin's legacy started with Wadewin. We could travel together if you don't mind sleeping in the same tent with me. Where are you headed? Someplace called Cade Nua. There's an old watcher there who might be able to help me.
Seem to remember hearing something about that years ago. He tamed that place. People would seek him out for all kinds of things. Troubles of the soul, questions for the departed. Of course, that was back when you didn't have to say watcher with a hush on your breath. A man such as that, there'd be things I'd want to ask him. Don't know why I never thought of it before.
Something kindles in Adair's eyes. Like Adele. Adair. Was it Adair? Not Eater. Adair. and the vigor of purpose finds its way into his voice.
Not sure how I feel about setting out with a stranger, and a strange one at that. But truth be told, you might be the only one in town who wouldn't feel some relief seeing me swing from that tree.
He scratches his beard absently with a callous thumb. There's a fine reason if I ever heard one.
All right then. Guess I'll do some sightseeing. Long as you're not the one picking the sights.
He tilts his head forward and gives you a pointed look. Fragments of a scattered faith. I gotta be next to him. Isn't that sad? Okay. So what is he? This handsome fella. This picture reminds me of what's his name in Street Fighter 4, 5. Cody. Reminds me of Cody. Sexy looking Cody. Let's see. Where's his class? How do I check his class? He's a fighter as well, so now we have two fighters. 3 plus the bear. A rising sun and the 3 dawn stars, the symbol of Eothas.
I haven't been in here for, must be 5, 6 years. Used to be real nice. Bright. Warm. Hey.
Oh, that's right. You can talk like that with your allies. I hope that old watcher's still there. Been years since I heard anything about him. I was wondering about Eothas.
It makes 2 of us.
What is there to know about Eothas?
If you're looking to find religion, maybe you want to start with a god that hasn't been burned to dust, but I won't stop you. Aethys, he was a young man with a silver crown. Carried a candle around with him. Sounds like I'm giving a bad eulogy here.
He was a lot of different things to different people, I guess. Rebirth, redemption, light. Out in the country, he's Gon, the farmer, who helps all things pass, seasons and people both. He watches over the weak, does Gon, sees imbalance made right. You could see why all the copperless rowdies around here might take a liking to someone like that. He was real popular here for a time. These days you won't find too many worshipping Eothas in the open. It's hard to know who still does in private and who's given up. Feels like I'm the last one sometimes. He smirks. If that's the case, he deserves all the mourning. Do you still worship Eothas?
In my way. I don't suppose he expects me to show up at his temple these days. Not much left to do for him other than keep his memory alive and keep hoping that he's just been playing a joke on all of us these past 15 years.
As far as I know, he hasn't said anything to anybody since Godhammer detonated. Why worship him then? He grimaces. Well, if it turns out he's not dead, and I gave up on him, I'd betrayed my god twice. Even the god of redemption's gotta have standards. I'd probably be reborn as a fat Almo. Almo was a horse. That's not really it, though. Not at all of it, anyway. He casts a sidelong glance. I guess it's more I still believe in the things he believed in. I just hope his death doesn't mean the death of those things as well. Sometimes it looks that way. Why did you choose to worship Aethys in the beginning?
Raised that way. My family's been Aethasian going way back. Suppose it wasn't much of a choice at first. Don't know for sure why my family started worshiping him. Probably because of Gon looking after folks like us.
Yeah, they always get indoctrinated when they're young. He looks you in the eye. Conspirational. Could just as well be that my ancestor did something so bad that Aethys could forgive. I'd explain a lot about where I got some of my less respectable traits. Or it would explain a lot. Did you only worship him because that's how you were raised?
Mm-hmm. There was something I genuinely liked about Aethys. Always. Like he understood people better than the other gods. Knew all our flaws and weaknesses and accepted us for that. Folks are at their worst when they're afraid. A god like Aethys, he made you realize there was nothing to fear. Made you a better person. Of course, he goes away for a few years and look what happens.
What made you think Waidwen didn't speak for Aethys?
Was his actions. Not when he started his rebellion, not even when he took over Rhaed Saris. It was when he sent his armies into Deerwood.
Up to that point, he was sticking up for his people. That's what Aethys does. At least the gone part of him. Those farmers were starving and the government didn't lift a finger. I figured it wasn't Aethys himself. At least he had the right idea. But then he sent armies across the border, even crossed it himself in the end. Word was he was chasing refugees that escaped the rebellion, wanted to punish them, and punish us for allowing them to live here. That just didn't fit for me. Those are the deeds of a vengeful god, Skain or Woodicka maybe. Or just a man who'd lost his sense. I still have trouble believing it, but there's no one left to ask if it's true. Tell me about the purges.
You sure you don't want to talk about something more pleasant? Like the War of Black Trees or the Legacy or something?
Adair looks at you as though he's looking directly into the sun. It's eye-opening, seeing just how naked you are when you've got no god to protect you. The Saints' War was a hard time to be Derwooden. People thought it was the end of times. They would talk big about how we were going to defeat a god. But I don't think there was a man from here to the White March didn't think he was going to die. It does something to you, thinking you're going to die at someone else's hands. There's a rage that comes, indignation. Imagine a whole country full of that. Might have been Cole Morn that started it, town near the border. They let Waidwen march right on through. Rest of Deerwood cursed their names till the end of the war. Some say it was the Eothasians there that persuaded the people, the town, not to oppose the army. Others said it was just cowardice. It was like the Legacy that way. No one knew the real person, so they just picked whichever one best suited what they wanted to believe. Either way, that town was burning before the first ashes of Eothas hit the ground. And it felt good to the people here to be in control after being so helpless, so the fire spread. A lot of us Eothasians went the way of our god. There were claims from the Church of Magran that she'd actually commanded the purges. I found that hard to believe. It sounded to me like people doing what they wanted, wrapping their god around it like she was a cloak. Then again, that's what I thought about Waidwen.
What's on your mind?
What is it you want to ask this watcher in Sid Noah? Just some things about the past, about the war. I've been thinking I missed my chance to find out what I wanted to know. That old watcher, though, he opens up some new possibilities. I want to ask something about you. If you're sure. What did you do before this?
Oh, other than the war, I never strayed too far from where you found me. Farming, mostly. I was never much for cities. Never learned a trade. In my younger days, I thought I was going to go preach the word of Aethys. Just in our temple there. My parents encouraged it. I made so much trouble for them growing up. They used to say it'd be best if I got in good with the God of Redemption. Of course, us blowing him up probably didn't help my chances there. But if anybody'd forgive you for blowing him up, it'd be Aethys.
Yeah, the people of Gilded Vale really try to kill you.
They, they did. It was strange timing, because we just won the war. They celebrated when I came home. There was music and dancing. Trumbull used half his grain making this big honey cake. I still dream about that cake. Like having the best lover of your life, but only for one night. They were all sorry to hear about my brother.
You can have a lover for every night.
Took a while for word of the purges to reach us. Aethasians being murdered in the streets. Cold morn and the like. No way would they let something like that happen in Gilded Vale. That's what they all said. But the weeks went by and the purges spread. Pretty soon they weren't so sure my brother fought for Deerwood. And they weren't so sure I did. Caught me by surprise after all the celebrating. Should have seen it coming after the tailor said he was going to fit me for some new clothes, but then all he wanted was my neck mainly.
Really?
No, not that last part. But you had to think about it. Says a lot about the place I've been calling home all these years.
Why did you stay for so long in town that hated you?
Well, I'm sure my parents are still wondering the same thing. The Aethasian purges were like this madness that come over the town, like a disease. Seems like when you see something like that, your instinct is to wait for it to pass, even when you know it probably won't. The family whose farm I worked on, they had a little Hollowborn girl. And they heard the Animancers had this cure, salvation it was called. They went running. This salvation, they were putting animal souls in children. You might have heard about it, giving them enough personality to care for themselves. You can guess how that turned out. Matter of time, the children broke down, became wild things, monsters. Anyway, these farmers put the family dog's soul in their little girl. For a while, the girl, she's making eye contact, she's feeding herself, albeit in a kind of messy way. And one day she snaps. Found her gnawed on her brother's bones. Had to chain her up, put her in a cow pen. Well, the mother, she wouldn't have anything to do with the girl after that. But the father, he visited every day. Feed her chickens, toss water on her once in a while to get the dirt off. Most of the village, they'd whisper about him. Poor man, they'd say, sick with grief. He was just waiting for his daughter to look up one day and recognize her papa. He was waiting for her to get better. Didn't understand that at the time, of course, but these days I think about him a lot.
Do you have a family? Just my parents now. They took a trip back to Ader when the purges started. Wanted me to go with them, but I didn't see things like they did. Been a long time since I've seen them. I really should visit, but for some reason I haven't much felt like leaving home. Good thing they chased me out, or I might have never left.
What's on your mind?
Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, can we actually...
Just say the word.
Ooh, she's loud. Can't talk to her.
How may I help?
Aeloth looks at you with quiet attentiveness. How may I be of service? Tell me about Ader. I've been gone for more than a year now. But I suspect I'll always think of the forest and fields of Ader as home. We have thousands of years of history and tradition behind us, and there's a sense of dignity and responsibility that comes with that. He frowns. Of course, there's baggage as well. Our imperial past is still fresh in the minds of many, and you may have noticed, as you may have noticed here. Has it been difficult to adjust to the dear word? People here are informal, hot-blooded. His mouth twists into a wry smirk. More attentive to insult than to duty, but as long as one avoids provocation, it's easy enough to get along. He steeples his fingers. I've gotten accustomed enough to keeping my thoughts to myself, anyway. How long were you in Gilded Vale? She shrugs, fidgeting with the hem of his sleeve. Not much longer than you, as you saw. It was hardly the haven that had been advertised. Any thoughts on where we should go next? Well, you're in charge here. As far as I'm concerned, any place is better than Gilded Vale. His eyes dart to Adair. No offense. Why did you say that? Oh, because Adair is... This is his home. Or he considers this his home. Alright. Totally forgot about the
Sure.
companion chat. Okay, let's talk to this guy, initiate this quest, and then I think I need to go to sleep. It's already been 40 minutes. A man lies resting against the wall. It's funny how we were talking, you know, trying to get to know each other, you know, between the family, between the group, members of my group, and in all that time, this guy's been just sitting there all injured and shit, watching us talk. Lit by the dim illumination of the fading sconces. He was a gaunt, fox-like aspect, and his face is pale and damp with sweat. One arm is held loosely against his side, sleeve soaked with blood. He gives you an anxious glance as you near, his feature twisted with pain. Have a care if you mean to go in. He cast a quick look towards the doorway to his left. This place is not so empty as I thought. He angles a look up to Adair. Praying your respects, Eotasian? He manages a pained grin. A little risky, isn't it? Think what the down folks would say. Safer down here than up there, even with the rats as big as they are. A faint edge of hostility belies Adair's playful tone. This temple isn't what it used to be, probably for the best. Times being as they are, he groans and shifts position, wincing. I'm no looter, if that's what you're thinking. Not one of his types anyway, either. Wharton jerks out his chin towards Adair. Adair, like Adele. Adair. Just wanted to do some good, I suppose. Got my arm clawed up for it. He regards you warily. Maybe you have a bit of luck. Better luck with what? The man points a finger upwards. These ruins around us used to be a temple of Aethus, the scattered god. Aethus. How did they pronounce it in the game? Aethus. A grand temple at that. His worshippers would come from all over the Deerwood, from the Red Sarahs even. Not so much from Red Sarahs these days. Until the war, of course. Even then, you'd get some of the stubborn ones, the ones that couldn't get it through their heads that their god was dead and gone. Go on. Once the legacy started, Lord Redrick decided he'd been too lenient on the Eothasians. He had his people go in and put them to the sword, left them down here, buried in the heap of rock. After that, Redrick ordered the temple sealed. It's been years like that, up until recently. Lord Redrick hopes that if we rededicate the temple to a living god, then we'll be forgiven, and the legacy will end. See? He smiles brightly. But until then, the temple is as you see it, unguarded. That's where you come in. Wharton licks his lips. Those priests Maybe they didn't have a lick of sense between them, but they still didn't deserve to go like that, chopped down in their god's house. It doesn't sit right with me. If you can get down there, find their remains, maybe we can finally give them a proper burial. Wharton breathes out. No small task. There's coin in it for you if you need motivating. Aloth's caution expression softens. A pleasant surprise to see that someone around here has the shred of respect for the dead. I have some questions first. Yes, why can't you do it yourself? Well, I tried. Only got a short way in before I got in over my head. Wharton grimaces. I haven't raised a blade in a long time. Turns out it isn't something you can just pick up again. But you look like you can handle yourself. Who are you anyway? Wharton offers you a weak grin. Name's Wharton. I've lived in Gillitvale long enough to remember how grand it used to be. He shrugs and looks away. I used to help the temple sometimes, bring supplies. That's all. Won't Lord Redrick mind us digging around there? I wouldn't go telling him about it, lingering in these places. It's no good for anyone. But you do this quick and quiet, and we can do right by those priests without raising a fuss. Any chance there's something down there worth a little more than some old bones? Wharton looks around. Probably. Nobody's been through the place since it was sealed up. I think he was the one responsible for killing the priest or something, right? That's why he was feeling so guilty, and then you can kill him. Well, apart from me, and I didn't touch anything. Any valuables in there, you get first crack at them. I only ask you to do me this favor while you're at it. I'll take it you aren't supposed to be in there. Written Ross bleakly. Well, I meant to be in and out nice and quick. I'm not hurting anyone. It's just Lord Redrick's forbidden anyone having anything to do with the scattered god. It'll be a little harder to explain to him than you. It's a good cause, though, isn't it? And you could make some coin in the process. I'll find them. Then by the flame, I owe you a good turn. But listen, the temple's been sealed off for a long time. It's crawling with creatures. But if you can get past them, the priests would have been down on the lower floor. They'll be there still. If not, anywhere. Those priests had all kinds of secret chambers, switches in the walls, trick sconces and kind of things. Keep an eye out and take care down there. I wouldn't want to have to send someone after your remains. I'll be here by the stairs and keep looking out. Maybe try to patch myself up some. Okay, let me save here. All right. Yeah, I'm getting sleepy. That was a good 45 minutes though, so get to progress the game a little further. We'll play some more later. Bye. Good night. I'm pretty sleepy.